Hello, welcome to another episode of Science Talks, a conversation hosted by the University of Arizona's BIO5 Institute. My name is Amy Randall Barber. The BIO5 Institute is home to hundreds of researchers and students, as well as administrative staff who help support the cross-disciplinary research conducted here. Today we are joined by Dr. Martha Dua-Awereh, who is currently working in the Alfred Bothwell Laboratory here at the U of A and at the College of Medicine Tucson campus. Martha earned her PhD from the Department of Systems Biology and Physiology at the University of Cincinnati School of Medicine, and she was recently awarded a postdoctoral fellowship from the BIO5 Institute. She is the first in her family to live in Arizona and additionally has several other firsts that we will talk about in our interview. Thank you so much for joining us today, Martha.
Thank you for having me here, Amy.
So we like to kind of get started with just a couple fun icebreaker questions. Just to have fun. So let's see. Question number one, what is your favorite place that you've ever been to?
My favorite place is Brooklyn, New York, and I will tell you why soon.
Okay. What is something that you've always wanted to do but you've not done it yet, and why not?
I've always wanted to go to Ghana and Paris. So my family is originally from Ghana, but I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And so my mom wanted to go to Ghana with me when I first went, but we haven't had time or the money, and so we haven't gone yet. Same for Paris. I want to go to Paris just to see it. It's beautiful, but I haven't physically been there, and so hopefully soon in the next couple of years I'll be able to go and see both.
Heck yeah. Hashtag goals. Absolutely. All right. Well, so Arizona.
Yes.
You are the first in your family to live in Arizona, and you attended the University of Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. You kind of mentioned you grew up in Brooklyn, New York, because that was the next question I was going to ask. But what brought you to Arizona?
As you mentioned, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, first in my family to do so. And I went away to college in Philadelphia. After that, I actually went back to Brooklyn to finish another degree, and then decided to go to Cincinnati for graduate school. And so while I was there, my mentor, Dr. Dua-Awereh, got offered a position here at the University of Arizona. And during my graduate studies, generally, if you want to take a student with you, you can if you're going to another institution, but you don't necessarily have to. And she decided to take me with her. She actually asked the program coordinator and the program director, discussed it with them before she approached me and said, "Hi, I'm going to Arizona.
Would you like to
go with me?" And I
cool.
said, "Sure." And so I came here and then virtually completed my degree here. And then afterwards, I decided to stay when I got offered a job. So Dr. Dua-Awereh, as well as other mentors such as Dr. Merchant, reached out to people, and Dr. Bothwell contacted me before I even finished my degree. And it just so happens that I was interested in the research that he was doing, and I decided to stay.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you. We're glad you stayed.
Thanks.
So can you tell us about your series of firsts? I should disclose that I saw a video online while doing research for this podcast, actually, that you did for postdoctoral affairs here at the U of A. And you had mentioned that there were several firsts that you've had. So I just wanted to bring that up and kind of ask you, what were your firsts and what did they mean for your family?
Yeah, so I guess the number one first was being born in the U.S. I'm the first in my family to do that, and currently maybe the only one, but hopefully not for long. And so since our family is from Ghana, we're Ghanaian, there's an aspect of that we have that's embedded in everything that we do, but being American, I add an extra layer to that. So through my eyes is a Ghanaian American focus that my family can get exposure to and perspective about several things. So that has had an impact on them. Good or bad, it depends on the topic. Another first is, leaving New York. My family's from all over, from Ghana, London, But the ones that come to New York tend to stay in New York and not branch out to the rest of the country. And so since I've been to different places, I've kind of established this culture, this pattern of, traveling and going to different places. And so my nieces and nephews have also done the same thing. In fact, my sister and my niece are coming to visit me in Arizona.
Oh.
They've never been to Arizona, but now they have a reason to come.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool.
So, and my nephew, when he was looking at colleges, looked outside of New York to go to different places and to travel. So that was something that really did impact my family. Even my mother, who never wanted to leave New York, but is now in Arizona with me. So it had a huge impact with that. In terms of education, pursuing a tertiary degree, I was first in my family to do that, but I'm not the last. So my nieces and nephews have done it, and then it's become a not a requirement, but an option that once you finish high school, we should look at college in our family, and then even look beyond that if you want to do something else. So it's really my first in terms of what I've done. Have not only established a legacy for my family, but a way for them to kind of use me as a troubleshooter, the fixer, and give them information about things that they should do, what things they can improve upon, what things can add onto their lives in a way that they didn't expect. So for me, it's been an adventure, and for them, it's been a learning experience.
That's so great that you're just inspiring all of your family, and in so many different ways, and sharing your experiences, and then they get to go and experience things, and wow, that's really cool though. Yeah. And it's brave of you to be the first for everything.
Either brave or not so smart, but I still do it. I guess I'm not someone who I would describe as adventurous or daring, but I am curious. I think my curiosity has led me to different paths in my life, including science. Yeah.
That's what they say about scientists is the curiosity is what the biggest element to becoming a scientist. So.
Yeah, it is.
Awesome. So actually, let's talk about your research a little bit. You are in Dr. Bothwell's lab. Can you tell us what the overall research goals are of the lab and how it will impact human health?
So our lab is mainly a immunology and cancer research lab. So we look at ways that the immune system interacts with not just cancer, but also other types of diseases. So we look at infections. In particular, we look at Leishmania infection at one branch of our lab. And then we also look at how the immune system interacts with cancer. So we study different cancers, but mainly whether or not how cancer can manipulate the immune system and how the immune system interacts with cancer as well. So these are our part of the goals. And so when the reason why we attempt to look at these things is that we want to see whether or not we can identify targets that we can use as ways to improve upon therapies when it comes to infection or therapies when it comes to cancer. In particular, we also look at not just ways that the immune system recognizes the cancer and destroys it, but ways that the cancer can manipulate the immune system to hide and to mask its function there and to trick the immune system to thinking that it is also an immune cell.
Wow, okay. I've heard and read all about the immune system, being used to fight cancer, but the way that you've just explained it was awesome. Thank you. Now I understand better.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Yes. My goodness. So yeah, my gosh, we need that research done more than ever, and I have no doubt that it's going to be soon. Yes. It'll be soon. Yes. That some answers will happen. So, what is your current project for the fellowship, like within the lab?
Right, so I mentioned the immunology cancer research component. That's mainly where I do my focus. So I work with pancreatic and colorectal cancer, and so I'm looking to see whether or not there are particular factors that encourage these cancer cells to have more interactions with immune cells. And so there's this process called trogocytosis, which usually happens between immune cells where they recognize each other and they kind of take parts of the cell, usually the surface, and they take those parts and make it their own without killing or destroying the other cell. Cancer can have this interaction with the immune cells too. It's very unusual, but it can happen, and there might be some cancers where it happens more often. And so we're trying to figure out what factors contribute to that, and what makes it do this phenomenon, trogocytosis, in one type of cancer in one cell versus another. And then we're also looking to see whether or not these same factors allow the cancer cell the ability to expand and grow. Cancers, depending on which part of your body they like to be in that area, that focus, they're localized, just like every part of your body, every organ. There's a different environment, different cells. And cancer can sometimes be the same way, but there's an extra step that allows cancer to transcend this and expand. And we're trying to investigate what factors kind of make that switch in the cancer cell from being localized to being spread or metastasized. So I also look at metastasis and whether or not there might be some correlation between this ability for the cancer cell to mask itself from the immune system and become more metastatic.
Okay. Wow. And so is that the kind of work you're doing with the fellowship?
Yes, exactly. So the fellowship is providing me opportunities to be able to run tests. In particular, I need to do this. And so because of so many different factors that may be involved in cancer and the immune system, we want to look at exactly which genes might be expressed, overregulated, affected, and part of the fellowship is helping me to be able to do those tests. It's also enabling me to be able to talk about it at different places. So I'm able to use part of the fellowship to travel and go to conferences and talk more about science, which can be difficult to do, especially for me, science and research that I do, because it's not the most easy to understand. It's still complicated for me, and I work on it every single day, much less anyone else who may not be familiar with it. So being able to share and talk about research that not only is impactful to just the field of science, but to people is really important, and the fellowship has allowed me to do that.
Oh wow, that's really, really cool. Have you done any trips yet this year?
Not yet, but I have plans to do 2 trips. So.
Oh, where are you going?
So the first trip I think is in Chicago. It's for the I might be wrong, but it's for the American Association of Immunologists.
Okay.
I've never been, and so I'll hopefully be presenting my research there. And then the second trip is for the American Physiology Society, which I am a member of, and I've gone on different trips there as a graduate student, but this is the first time I'll be going as a postdoc to talk about my research.
Wow,
so
that's awesome.
Hopefully I'll be able to do that, but yes.
Yeah, well, maybe you'll find some collaborators as well, or pick up some awesome ideas to take back with you. Yeah.
Yes, that is the hope.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing.
Thanks for asking.
So let's see So in a video that I saw of you online that you did for the Postdoctoral Affairs Department here at U of A, you mentioned organoids.
Yes.
What is an organoid?
An organoid is kind of what it sounds like. It's a mini organ.
Okay.
That's a very, simple way of breaking it down. And so an organoid is basically, if you think about cells, and, I don't know if you are familiar with cell culture, but usually people will take cells and they'll plate them on dishes, and it's kind of a 2D system where cells are either on the dish and they're growing and there's interactions, whereas with organoids, you can actually look at the 3D interactions. So it's almost as if you are looking kind of at a smaller version of what you would expect in your organs. So matrix gel is one of the components that we use to grow organoids, and it's supposed to be a matrix, supposed to mimic kind of the normal matrix that you'd have in your body. And so you're not just getting the interactions of the cells themselves in this organoid, but how they interact with different factors such as matrix or matrix gel or other cell cultures. So organoids are literally just little versions of your organs, and they can be made up of the different cells that make up your organs as well.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. So do you do one that's like liver, and then another one that's more pancreatic or pancreas?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yes. So I work particularly with pancreatic and colon or colorectal cancer, and so I will work with pancreas or colon organoids. And so I think almost at this point, I think people have been able to isolate or generate organoids from almost every organ in the body. If not all, but close enough. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, look at that. Like how cool science is, how far it's come to be able to do this so that the work can be done, the research can be done to help humans and help, you know, hopefully cure cancer someday, or at least know how to treat it so people don't die. You know, I mean, that's always the goal.
And so how do we generate organoids? Well, that process is interesting. So I've generated organoids from mouse organs and human organs.
Okay.
And so one of the ways that you can do that is through tissue from primary tissue or tissue sample or biopsy. And another way you can do that is through stem cells directly, whether it's embryonic or induced. What you need for the basic component that you need for an organoid is a stem cell. And so whether that's an adult stem cell or a non-adult stem cell, as long as you have a stem cell, that is the basic foundation. And so depending on what factors are around it in terms of what we add to the culture, the stem cell will change and differentiate to mimic those same cells that are in your organs.
Okay.
So when we get tissues from either human tissue or mouse tissue, we're able to break those tissues down and grow organoids from it.
Wow, that's really cool. And so how do you get the human tissues?
That's a great question. So here at the university and at other universities too, there is actually a repository where patients who come in for procedures that require a biopsy or taking a sample, they will be approached to see whether they like to participate and donate a sample that either would have been discarded or used for another purpose to the repository. And so the repository will collect that tissue and preserve it. So it's usually frozen tissue. Sometimes it can be, if it's collected fresh that day, we can also use it. But we'll ask for those samples, that tissue, and then use that tissue to generate organoids. There's also, so that's a repository here. There's also a couple, but there's also another core, and technically these are all part of the same core here, where they will also just take those same tissues and generate organoids from it directly.
Oh.
And then freeze those down so that if we need them, we can just ask them for organoids and they can give it to us.
It's quicker that way.
It's quicker that way, yeah. It's hard to get human tissues because, of course, you know, humans are. You can't just go up to everyone and say, "Hey, can I have a piece of your tissue?"
Yeah.
But we really do appreciate the contributions, because I know it's particularly for my research where I'm working with human tissues and trying to do studies that will directly apply to human treatments. Ideally having working with human cells is great, but it's not always available, and it's a limited resource to get those. So every sample we get, I am just so appreciative, and it's made me look at science in a completely new and a really multifaceted way that I didn't before.
And how can people find out about donating, or is it truly just happenstance? You happen to be getting a procedure that day and they come up to you and ask you? So
there are a couple of ways. Sometimes usually through physician scientist collaborations directly, especially if that physician is doing a clinical trial or clinical study. Okay. They may be using or working with techniques that they're working with their counterpart, the scientists, and so they may collect those samples, and those samples will be passed over, collected directly by the laboratory to use that. Another way is through collaborations through Banner Hospital and through the university. I think there's a pathway set up where there is someone in the repository core, a couple of people who are notified by physicians that participate in the repository collection about, patients who may be coming in for this procedure, and that information is passed to them, and they're contacted prematurely. So I think the best way to do that is to either contact the core directly. We can make requests for different type of tissues from different procedures, different populations, because we also want to see whether or not there's a difference between men and women. I'm particularly interested in minority populations, so I will also look at that as well. So I think that may be the best way. It's a little like, I guess it's not as well advertised as I would hope it would be, but it's getting there. And I think there's now more awareness of how important that is, because with the limitations of being able to test or to examine or explore theories, you don't want to do that directly with humans. And so this allows us a way to be able to really make an impact on whether a particular drug or chemotherapy actually works for that person without putting that person through unnecessary, trauma or burden, but also making sure that what is given to them is actually going to work.
That is so important, and just not the way things are currently. And so how amazing that would be to get there finally, and you will.
Yeah, that is my goal, to get to that point.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. Well, thank you for all the work you do in that area. Yeah, oh my gosh. Cancer, I think, affects everybody. I think that everybody can think of one person at least that they know that cancer has affected. So
yeah, initially I wasn't sure I wanted to go into cancer, but my brother was diagnosed with metastatic lung cancer a couple of years ago and passed very suddenly. And I think one of the issues that I think still affects our family to this day is that he didn't want to really tell us about it. And I think if he had known how much I was involved in it, or how much I was aware about it, that he would have felt, I guess, more confident in talking to me about what can be done, or what therapies to explore, or how serious it is. Because I think there's also in our family, for the members that knew, there wasn't an awareness of how much it would affect his life and how quickly it would do so.
Oh wow, okay. So it really rocked a lot of people's world, because it went so quick.
It went so quick, yeah. And then,
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And then I have friends who are confused about how they have other friends who have cancer, but they're still here, and how well they're able to respond to some therapies, but not. So yeah, my goal is to be able to figure out what those factors that cause those differences, and be able to make it more so that people have a better understanding of what cancer is, how it can affect your life, and what we can do about it.
Yeah, and I know, so my mom passed away from breast cancer about 9 years ago, and she'd had the cancer, had surgery, and was cancer-free for 4 years. And they say that 5-year window, but in the 5th year, it came back as bone cancer and metastasized, and then it went on from there. And, it's we wondered all the same things, why did it come back? How come it couldn't stay away? Why didn't they detect it sooner? Yeah, just lots of questions and no answers, so.
I know. I'm sorry about your mom.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So I 100% mean it when I say I appreciate what you're working on, and I hope that we get to, some answers.
Yeah, me too.
For some of this stuff, absolutely.
Me too.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, changing gears just a little bit.
Yeah.
You mentioned a mentor.
Yes.
That brought you here to Arizona.
Yes.
So the question is, do you have any influential mentors that are in your life, whether it's career or personal or academia, and who are they? And
oh, there's so many. I guess the first person I always think about is my mom. She influences my personal and, to a sense, academic work too. She was motivational and pushed me. Like I mentioned, I was first in my family to do a lot of things, especially when it came to education. And my mom didn't have the chance to go to college, even though she wanted to. And so for me, it was she wanted to make sure that I had those opportunities. And so even now to this day, if I work too hard, she says, "Hey, take a break. You don't need to do this.
Yeah. Remind you of the well-being. Yeah,
remind me of
take
the
care of
well-being.
yourself.
Yes, take care of myself, which I usually forget to do. And so that'd be one. And then Dr. Zavros, like I mentioned, I'm still here, she's still here, so it's easy to kind of pop in when she's available and say, hey, I have a question. So
That's great.
Yeah. And then also, as I mentioned, the senior scientist that was in the Zavros lab that came with us, Dr. Jayati Chakrabarti, she actually works with the biorepository core, so a lot of questions that I have. So she works with the core. It's many things here, many acronyms at the university, but the core is TACMaster, and she works at TACMaster, and there's another section of TACMaster called BioDroid, which generates the organoids. So I will usually have questions about organoids from both of them about that in terms of work or grants, or they remind me that work is important and how to go to try different experiments and why it's important. And my mom is the personal mentor. I have mentors also outside of the university, which I think is important. One good mentor is Dr. Arnaldo Diaz-Vasquez. He is the associate dean at the University of Texas Southwestern. And I actually met him when I was at the University of Pennsylvania for a summer program, and he coordinated that. And he maintained that relationship with me, and any questions that I really have about not just academia, but how do I do this, or should I present this poster, should I talk to this person, do you know this person? He usually can do that because he has connections at other places too. And then I'm gaining mentors at this university as well. I work in Dr. Bothwell's lab, so he's a mentor. Also, one of our next door labs, Justin Wilson's lab, he's a great mentor. He actually, he's a kind of sort of new faculty, and so I can get the perspective of being a new faculty from him, as well as several different faculty here that I am learning from. So yeah,
I've noticed how willing the faculty are at answering answering questions and helping individuals that are here, mentorship or just a question. We'll give a lot of tours here, and a lot of times it's for undergraduates, and they'll ask us, how do you get into a lab? How do I? And my honest answer is just email them. I mean, they will email you back. Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
So it seems intimidating, but
Yeah, I was at that end once, and asking as many people as much as you can to know, to get information, it really does help. And so I think this university excels at that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so the next question is, what's next for you? Which we kind of touched on that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But you've got the fellowship ends December 31st.
Yeah.
And what's next?
So that's a great question. I hope to finish my postdoc in the next couple of years, and then from then on, I know I want to do cancer research. But I'm not sure if I want to do it in academia right away or if I want to come back to academia, because there are things in government that I'm also interested in terms of policy and health. For a short while, I did have medical education, and I really did love seeing patients, and so actually saw patients in practice. And there's a lot of things in science, especially when it comes to preclinical research, where there are questions about human health or human conditions, and usually I'm the one to answer those questions, particularly in my lab, and so I realized how important that is when it comes to science. So I might even go back and pursue medicine and do that too, and tie those two things together.
Oh, wow, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, and do translational research. So so the next steps may be doing a bit more research, or going back and doing more education to do more research.
Wow, that's so inspiring. You're amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, holy smokes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again for coming to visit with us and to answer our questions and share your story. We really appreciate having you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks to our listeners for tuning in to another episode of Science Talks. Continue the conversation with us next time as we learn more about the amazing science happening at the University of Arizona's BIO5 Institute.